You know, have you ever noticed how teaching a young child to read is, well, it's really just as much about building up their confidence as it is about actually memorizing letters? Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly unique, super engaging lesson module, and it's called V is for Vibrant Victories. It was designed by Ncheche T. Nufor from Elementary Education Explorers, and let me tell you, this is definitely not your standard run-of-the-mill early years phonics lesson. Not at all. We're going to dive right into how this curriculum acts as an absolute masterclass in blending foundational literacy with really essential character building. Right out of the gate, we get this fantastic quote that illustrates the whole core philosophy. Every small victory helps us grow. Now, this statement serves as the foundational anchor for the entire curriculum. It literally shows us exactly how learning a simple letter is deeply, deeply intertwined with socio-emotional development. It tells the student, and honestly the educator too, that effort matters just as much as accuracy, and that sets a wonderfully positive stage before a single phonics rule is even introduced. So to see exactly how this dual track of phonics and character building actually works, we're going to walk through the lesson chronologically. We'll start with the Vibrant Victories theme, then we're meeting the letter V, sparking sound and story, moving into hands-on practice exercises, and finally, tracing towards success. All right, let's jump into Section 1, the Vibrant Victories theme, blending phonics and perseverance. So, what does a victory actually look like for a young learner? Well, vibrant victories are defined as successes that come through learning, practicing, helping others, and never giving up. Notice how framing the learning process this way completely shifts the perspective. Anyone who's worked with a frustrated 5-year-old knows exactly how quickly they can just shut down if they don't get something right immediately, right? But by emphasizing things like helping others and practicing, this curriculum empowers these young learners to view every single small step in phonics as a major triumph. It completely takes the pressure off of being perfect on the very first try, and instead it absolutely champions resilience. Moving right along to Section 2, meeting the letter V, sound and visual anchors. Okay, now we get into the actual mechanical foundation of the lesson, which is introducing the letter itself as a consonant in the alphabet. It says, let's say it together. Va says va. This is a really direct interactive prompt, and it introduces the sound by encouraging active participation right from the start. You're not just giving them a boring rule to memorize, you're having them physically feel the vibration. Actually, go ahead and try it right now. Va. Do you feel that little tickle on your bottom lip? Sure, it might even lead to a little bit of flying spit in the classroom, but you know what? That tactile feedback is exactly what makes the learning so highly engaging and memorable for a kid. To really ground that vibrating sound, the module uses these carefully curated, highly visual anchor words: violin, van, volcano, vine, and a vase of flowers. Now, the source material actually features 20 distinct V words in total, including bigger ones like veterinarian and vacation. But rather than overwhelming the student with that massive list right away, the lesson smartly starts right here. Imagine pairing these 5 core words with imagery of happy children celebrating success and flashing little victory signs. It makes that phonics connection immediate, positive, and vividly memorable. Next up is Section 3, sparking sound and story, building context. So after isolating the letter and introducing that broader vocabulary list, we have to ask the big question: how do we actually bring these words to life? To seamlessly transition from isolated vocabulary to meaningful context, the curriculum utilizes some really carefully crafted sentences designed to spark the imagination. Just look at how seamless the progression of language is here. We start with simple, concrete imagery. The van drove through the village. Okay, nice and easy. Then we add some descriptive adverbs. Victoria played the violin beautifully. We scale it up a bit more. The volcano stood high above the valley. And finally, we hit this emotional crescendo. Vibrant victories begin with believing in yourself. It's just a masterful escalation. It so smoothly weaves that mechanical V sound right back into the core emotional lesson of self-belief. All right, on to Section 4, hands-on practice exercises. The application phase. With that foundation laid out and the context built, the curriculum moves into a highly structured practice phase to really test recognition and application. And this progression intuitively guides the child step by step through the whole concept of scaffolding. Step 1 is super simple. It just has them isolating and circling the letter V, va, from a mixed group.
Then step 2 moves to meaning, where they match the word to a picture. Step 3 introduces spelling logic by having them fill in the missing first letter for words like van and vase. Step 4 starts integrating reading and art by having them color simple sentences. And finally, step 5 asks them to write the letter and featured words entirely on their own. It gently takes the child from basic visual recognition all the way to independent creation. It's building confidence at every single checkpoint.
And that brings us to Section 5, tracing towards success, reinforcing the mechanics.
The final specific activity in this module is dedicated entirely to tracing. This cements those physical motor skills required to actually write the letter. And here's a rather surprising pedagogical hurdle. For the letter V, the uppercase and lowercase shapes are entirely identical. Unlike an A or a G where the shapes change, the only difference here is proportion. And that can be incredibly confusing for a 5-year-old who is still developing their fine motor skills and spatial awareness. But by placing the uppercase V and lowercase v side by side during the tracing exercises, educators can easily highlight those spatial and sizing differences. Contrasting them directly like that is such a focused, smart strategy to solve a very specific early learning problem.
Following the individual letters, the students are then asked to trace these 5 core visual words: van, violin, volcano, vine, and vase. And this deliberately reinforces the vocabulary they've been working with throughout the entire module. Just think about the journey they've just taken. They've seen the pictures, they've literally felt the sounds buzzing on their lips, they've read the sentences in context, and now they're physically tracing the letters to form the words. It engages multiple senses to just fully, completely lock the learning in place.
As we reach the end of the lesson plan, we are greeted with this fantastic thought: victory comes to those who keep learning. This powerful closing quote just perfectly bookends the whole experience. Think back to that opening statement we talked about small victories helping us grow. Well, this closes the loop. It celebrates the hard work the child just completed. It's an absolutely great reminder for educators and parents alike that, hey, validating the effort is just as crucial as validating the correct answer.
Which brings us to the overarching framework of the curriculum: learn, practice, grow, celebrate. This basically acts as the ultimate motto for the entire Elementary Education Explorer series. It neatly summarizes their incredibly positive, character-building approach to early childhood education. It reminds us that learning isn't just about rote memorization, not at all. It's a holistic cycle of growth where celebration is an absolute requirement. So we arrive at our final thought for today. How will you inspire vibrant victories in your classroom today? Or, if you're a parent, maybe in your living room. As you think about implementing these engaging phonics and social-emotional techniques, really consider how every single small step you facilitate helps a young learner grow. Are you just teaching them the alphabet, or are you actively building their confidence to tackle the world? I'll leave you to ponder that one. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep exploring.